Yeah, as of right now, it seems like there's 15 teams who can go toe-to-toe any single week with one of the top dogs. And that's really exciting to see. I just don't know if it's going to continue to be that way in
Welcome to the official podcast of FCS Fans Nation with your hosts Kyler Neal, Matthew Frazee, and Jamie Williams.
FCS Fans Nation. We're not convinced that anybody is really that good after 4 weeks, except for the people that are on this podcast. Kyler Neal, Jamie Williams, Matt Frazee, welcome in again to the FCS Fans Nation podcast. If you're listening on Patreon, ad-free, you are an FCS Gold member. Super appreciate you guys. Had a few more of you jump in on that 99 cents a month deal. We appreciate that. Thanks for listening on YouTube. Click that like and subscribe. Apple, Spotify, welcome everybody. Welcome into the FCS Fans Nation podcast. We are excited to have you guys. FCS is what we are for now, but on Kyler's head, on my head, rests the hat of the James Madison Dukes, and everybody loves when we start the podcast talking about the G5 FBS, but Jamie Williams, those are your dogs. You love them. Take a moment. Since you won the basketball game against the Tar Heels yesterday, like 70-50 or something.
You know, after 13-6 against Gardner-Webb, I was just hoping to be competitive for a half against UNC. And then we dropped 53 in a half. And it was awesome. And Alonzo Barnett was a different guy. He set a school record, 7 touchdowns. I hope it's his coming out party. Because if it is, then there's good things ahead for my boys. So we'll see what happens. Hope they'll keep it rolling. I'll be up there this week to watch them play a MAC team, which is basically like an FCS Pioneer League team of Ball State.
Well, shout out to your Dukes. They performed great, as did Monmouth, who is our background cover if you're watching on YouTube or the video version on Patreon, as they got their first FBS win in program history, beating Florida International University, a fun little team I've used on NCAA football before. So congratulations. Nice work, Monmouth, and nice work to everybody who's gone out and really stuck it to the FBS at the next level. The out-of-conference play is done. We are moving on to conference play. But that doesn't mean fans do not have questions about things that have been going on in the FCS. A lot of great ones to get through tonight. So let's get to the top 6 right off the bat.
What are FCS fans talking and posting about nonstop? It's time for the top 6 topics of the week.
Gentlemen, this is a great one from 3 different people combined. Yes, Jordan John, the great Jeremiah Rash, and Alex Kenkel all combined to ask us a question. Their questions are different, but it brings up a good topic to kick off tonight's podcast. First off, Joshua Hoffman gave me a shout out on Twitter, and he asked if I would do any sort of ranting on the Dallas Cowboys. As you can tell from my background, and if you've listened to the pod, I do love my Cowboys a lot, as does Alex Kenkel. By the way, if you don't follow Alex, make sure you do on Twitter. He's a great human. He writes up a lot of stuff from Missouri Valley. He's very unbiased. I just wanted to say this one thing. I'm not going to rant about the Cowboys tonight, but I have to uphold Joshua, who's a gold member. I do love, if you don't follow me and Alex on Twitter, you will see an SDSU fan in Alex and an NDSU fan in Matt basically heart and agree on everything, because it's just really good, cordial stuff. But we're both Cowboys fans, and we disagree all the time on whether you should pay Dak, you should start this guy, how would you manage the team? So I just love that built relationship. And I want to give the shout out to Alex of, we both like something, but we disagree, and then we are rivals, but we tend to come to the center and figure it out. So
I think the Cowboys should just start Hunter Lipke at running back, and that would solve all their problems.
He looked pretty darn good. Pretty darn good. All right, enough about me and the pro teams and everybody else. Let's get to these 3 questions combined. Alex says, after years of being overrated, are people actually sleeping on UCA a little this year? Jeremiah Rash, a Saluki fan, says, with Southern Illinois decimated with injuries right now, almost 10 starters down, can they bounce back, or is their season cooked? And Jordan John says, thoughts on the South Dakota offense. South Dakota running back room proven to be one of the best in the FCS, and that's taking some of the pressure off of Aiden. Okay, those three questions, very different. South Dakota, Southern Illinois, you're talking Central Arkansas. I'm going to hold you back, Jamie and Kyler, on Central Arkansas, because that's where we're going for question number 2. But beyond that, I'm showing up on the YouTube screen here. Those questions are about those teams that we haven't talked about much in terms of the number 5 through 11 rankings. We talk about the Montanas, we talk about the Dakotas, but is there legitimate contenders, legitimate great teams? Are there people who are going to fall out of these 5 through 11 to 13 schools in the rankings right now? Jamie, you're the guy with the 1 through 127. What are you feeling about these squads, particularly Southern Illinois, South Dakota?
Southern Illinois, I'm concerned about the loss of their quarterback. If DJ Williams is there, that team can play with anyone. And without him, and I will preface this, without him, I picked SEMO. If he would have been there, I would have picked Southern Illinois. So I got that right. But they just have to hang on until he gets back. And I don't know if he's coming back. I don't know the prognosis. Hopefully Jeremiah, or maybe I'll reach out to Stone Labanowitz and see what the prognosis is. I don't remember. But yeah, that's a huge loss. I mean, all the other starters are important, but that guy's importanter. And it showed yesterday. They did a good job of fighting back. South Dakota, I don't know. I don't know what to make of South Dakota. They had a game against Portland State canceled. So otherwise, they've hammered Drake. They lost to whoever their FBS team was. I don't remember that one.
Yeah, they only lost to Wisconsin 27-13.
Yeah,
so they
which
had
was solid.
They had a good showing.
And then Northern State, whatever that is. So I haven't seen anything from them. The good news is they play Southern Illinois this week at home. So that one will kind of figure itself out a little bit. I tend to think without DJ Williams, South Dakota should win. Like the question I think Jordan said, I mean, their running game is better this year. So the way that Aiden Bowman doesn't have to do it all is good, but I think he can do it all if he needs to. I think he's quite good. Like you said, we'll ignore Central Arkansas. Legit contenders, they're contenders. And the reason is because the top 4, I think there's enough flaws in each of those 4 teams that aren't shown at the top there that they can be beat. And Idaho almost was yesterday. North Dakota State almost was the week before. South Dakota State, I mean, they got a little bit of a challenge, but not too much. And then Montana State, they haven't really played anybody, but they've done exactly what they should do, and that's just hammer everybody. So one of those 2 of those teams have to slip up, but anybody in this view here from 5 to 13, sure. Villanova, not so much. I don't think they've got it. They just really don't. I don't think I've seen enough from Connor Watkins. And then I could comment on a couple of those teams. I saw William Mary live yesterday. They've got a excellent running game. Darius Wilson, he just did not have a good game throwing the ball. They gave up a lot in the pass game, but they stopped the run. So there's ability there, but I don't see a top 10 team there either. So, there's contenders. I don't know that anybody's going to jump up and say, yep, I'm going to make the semifinals and take out one of those 4 above. But there's a long way to go. I think I repeat that just about every darn week, but we'll see. Definitely we'll see. I think it's more wide open than it has been. Let's say that.
Yeah, for sure. I don't like Montana goes up and gets beat by North Dakota, but North Dakota, doesn't look great yesterday, certainly. And the South Dakota, Southern Illinois thing to me is interesting just because who's going to set themselves up better is always the question. Like, you want to talk about contenders. Okay, who's going to travel on the road? Who's going to be a 15 seed? Who's going to be unseeded? And I really like what South Dakota's doing. And I'm going to steal a lot of Sam Herder points from his previews. But, they return a lot of guys from last year. 2 of their top 5 tacklers are back. Their secondary is very experienced in the back end. 9 starters from last year on the offense returns. And the defense, despite the competition, they still held Wisconsin under 30 points. They still have the competition they're playing against. They are absolutely eviscerating them. And I'm not going to lie, that's more than North Dakota State's doing. Like, North Dakota State should have pounded Towson. They shouldn't have given them 24, however many points they gave them. So South Dakota's defense looks really good. I'm pretty high on the Yotes from what I've seen. I was shocked to re-examine the Herder article to look at what they bring back. I think they're going to win that game next week against Southern Illinois, which is going to put the Salukis behind the 8-ball. And I just really like what they're bringing forward. But when I look at, like, I think Sac State was the team where, correct me if I'm wrong, Kyler, but you said like they had the 2 FBS games and now they're starting to gain that momentum post that.
Yeah.
South Dakota looks good. Montana, who's to say they can't go beat Montana State despite going to UND and losing? There's a lot of stuff here. And I think in the past we may have said that. I have said that to maybe make things sound more competitive than they are. But I feel like there's a lot of teams here that could get on runs and get on streaks because the top 4 haven't shown us the greatest things in all areas. Okay. Which is going to be a question we're going to cover later. But Kyler, how do you feel about this 5 through 13 range?
Well, first, can I just comment that, you were comparing South Dakota's victories to North Dakota State's, and you're like, North Dakota State's wasn't as impressive. You guys played Towson. You didn't play Drake or the NAIA school.
All right, I'll give you that.
Come on, man. Even Towson would have lit up South Dakota's schedule. But if you ask me, like, if the season ended today, like, hypothetically, season ended today, there's probably 15 real contenders who could go out and actually win the whole thing. I mean, realistically, there's probably 15 teams as of today, not tomorrow, not next week, not realistically at the end of the season, but as of today, that could win an FCS national title. So it's exciting to see. And that's because what you guys keep saying, there's a lot of flaws. And it seems like every team, or flaws is even a bad word. Maybe it's just there isn't this elite dominant team on paper with your eye test where you're like, oh my God, no matter what, no one's touching them. It seems like everyone has something wrong or a slight flaw to them. They're not perfect like maybe we've seen in previous years, or the couple teams that are looking kind of flawless, they haven't really played anyone. So we don't really know if they're truly tested or not, or if it's the level of competition, right? We had 4 out of conference games this year, 1 extra. We're 33% done with the season. And now we get into the real like heavy hitters. Conference play, teams know each other, people are more well adapted, coaches know how to prep against this team a little more often. So we're going to start to see these potential teams rise to the occasion. Maybe they're still developing, they're still getting to know everyone. So like South Dakota State right now, their offense doesn't look that impressive, but what's not to say they don't find their momentum. Their wide receivers finally start to click with Gronowski, and all of a sudden now their passing offense looks like it did last year, and it's a nightmare matchup. To where I don't know if these teams from 5 to 11 are going to be able to maybe continue to develop as well as the real contenders from the previous years. And that's what I'm waiting to see, because as of right now, it seems like there's 15 teams who can go toe to toe any single week with one of the top dogs. And that's really exciting to see. I just don't know if it's going to continue to be that way in 3 weeks from now, in 4 weeks from now, when coaching starts to know other coaching, when you're getting into that conference play. I think that's when we're really going to learn a lot.
It's going to be really interesting to see if these top 4, and I know we're talking 5 through 13, whatever, but who starts to take 2 losses, NDSU or SDSU, somebody's going to lose that matchup. Montana State, somebody's going to lose that matchup. UND, NDSU, South Dakota, like these things are going to happen and it's going to work itself out. But could we see a mock playoff special right here live with us where no team there is no 1-loss team? It's definitely possible this year, especially with a lot of these teams losing the FBS right off the bat. So it's going to be fun to see. It should be fun to watch one team continue to look pretty darn good. And I love the top 6 topic intro we have, because it makes it seem like people are always talking about these topics. But, most of these are just fan questions individually on a Sunday morning. But our next one here actually is all over the page. I have seen this in terms of the running game for Central Arkansas themselves. So here we go. Chase Beckvar and the Rev. Chase says, with 5 of the top 6 playing each other, how high could Central Arkansas sneak past the losers of the Valley and Big Sky matchups later this year? Kind of what I was just talking about. How high could Central Arkansas go in the seeding? Where could they sit? And then which UAC team has impressed so far, says the Rev. So, Kyler, how do you feel about that? I'm going to pull up Central Arkansas stuff here if you're watching on YouTube. How do you feel about Central Arkansas where they're at now? They seem to be playing some great ball. And where could they go in the rankings or when we come playoff seeding time?
Man, that first game, it is such a bummer because they should have a win right there. Even the announcers admit it was the wrong call. So they should be sitting pretty 4-0 and a dominant 4-0 in that. So they're beating their like lesser competition, and it's looking impressive. So, I mean, if they were 4-0 and they get through all of their schedule, they would be looking at some of those Sam Houston or Jacksonville State seeds where they were a pretty high seed, right? There was a couple times where they were a 2 seed, 3 seed. And I think if with that FBS one, yeah, they could have easily been a 3 seed, 2 seed with this schedule. It's not the most difficult, but it's also not the easiest. It's a very middle tier type of schedule. And if they rolled through it, I mean, man, that would look good. I mean, Lamar, they beat Weber State. ACU just went, toe to toe with Northern Colorado and Idaho. So we don't know if ACU is good or bad. I'm not sure, or vice versa. Maybe the Big Sky just absolutely sucks. So that's what I'm hoping for. But I think Central Arkansas has a shot. I mean, they have the best running back in the FCS, and I don't think there's really a close second place. I already started reading the thread online. It's like, our teams, we run multiple guys. So,
Yep.
we're just as good. No, it's watching them play. Also, if you have a workhorse and they're continuing to bully people, that's impressive. That means their momentum doesn't go away. Their stamina doesn't go away. So Powell is a freak, and I hope he gets drafted. So they can go pretty damn far. I mean, we've always said it, Jamie especially, the last few years, it's Central Arkansas has had some of the top-tier talent in all the FCS, and something wasn't clicking. They can never put together a season to kind of warrant the talent. Well, the coaching looks pretty freaking fantastic right now. The players look like they're all playing together. I'm really excited what's going to happen the next 2 weeks. I think those are the two biggest tests left on their season. EKU actually looked decent. Tarleton looks up and down. Southern Utah could be feisty. So, yeah, if they go undefeated, they're stealing some seeds. And it is much – I mean, if you're Central Arkansas, you do not want to go to the north. You don't want to go to Montana. You don't want to go to South Dakota in the playoffs, North Dakota State. You want some of these programs to come to you, and playing on the stripes with a momentum building team where they also went, toe to toe with Arkansas State. I like it. I hope, UCA doesn't have any type of injuries, because I want to see this team continue to work through it. And they could beat some Big Sky teams. They might even be able to beat all the Big Sky teams. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, they're a top 5 seed for sure. Maybe top 4.
If they went out, 100%.
If they went out, absolutely.
100%.
Not even debatable. So the strength of schedule may ding them a bit, but they're going to get a ranked win against Lamar. ACU, we'll see. Tarleton, likely. We'll see how the season plays out. Jamie, you look like you're just chomping at the bit to get it on Central Arkansas here, especially from the last question because they were kind of in it. Go at it, my man.
I mean, Kyler alluded to what I've been saying about Central Arkansas for a while, but so far this year, they have finally put it together. And not only Shunderick Powell, but Darius Hale also has 8 touchdowns. He's not going for 150 like Shunderick, but to be able to not lose a step when you have to go to your second guy, which is what Montana State has, like it's impressive. McIlvain's doing enough. The defense is nasty. David Walker is probably the best defensive player in the FCS. So Central Arkansas on each side of the ball might have the best player on that in the FCS. That's a recipe for success. They have to win this week, though, because that's really probably going to be their only shot for a ranked win. Abilene Christian, I don't see them getting in. They're in this week. Lost to Idaho close. I'm sure people will keep them in. I didn't have them in, won't have them in. And then probably nobody else until you get to Tarleton, and we'll see what Tarleton does the rest of the way. I'm not as high on Tarleton, but I'm finally probably putting them in my top 25 this week. And they're hanging in the mid-teens. So by then they could still be in there, but they've got to have this ranked win. And if they don't beat Lamar, then there's no chance they get a top 8 seed. But if they win this and get on a roll, those teams above are going to beat each other up, and resume is going to say Central Arkansas deserves a top 3 seed. Now, how the polls look, I don't know. They'll deserve to be high because just watch that team. they can compete with anybody. They can compete with the Dakota States. They can compete with Montana, Montana State, and Idaho. I hope we get the opportunity to see them go against one of those teams or two of those teams. I would love to. I want to see what the ceiling is for Central Arkansas because I've changed my tune. I'm buying in. I'm buying the stock there.
Yeah, if they can end up playing like a North Dakota State, what they're going to want to do is hand the ball to Powell, and then he's going to want to run up in between the center and the guard. And you're going to want to run that play 57 times in a row, and you'll score probably 48 points. Like
Look at Matt. He's not used to having a rushing defense give up 8 yards a game like the last 2 games. He's getting a little bit more like Kyler. You know, that's a game plan. That's a great game plan. That's how you beat all of us.
Starting to hurt.
Run up the middle, man.
Starting to hurt. And we'll get a chance to talk about that maybe now because Liam Maroney asks, who is more impressive in defeat, Western Carolina or Towson? I hate to use Western Carolina or Towson as a scapegoats because it brings opportunities to talk about 2 of the big dogs of Montana and North Dakota State. This is a tale of 2 cities, I guess, because Western Carolina looks really good against Montana. In fact, goes up 14-0 on them in the first quarter. The Grizz come roaring back, and then the halftime score is, basically, that's pretty much a wash. It was like 27-21. So first half, Western Carolina looks good, and then Montana runs away with it. Towson's down 31-10 entering the fourth. They score 14 straight points to make that game 31-24 to interesting, and then it ends 41-24. So basically, the question here from Liam is, who is more impressive between those two? I'll take Towson because naturally I would have seen the majority of that game. You guys can chip in if you want. Towson had some good players. I can see why they gave Villanova a problem. They had some big defensive tackles, some guys who could stop the run. Quarterback pretty inaccurate. They're just offensively just not there. And that doesn't speak well for the Bison defense. But offensively, they shouldn't really score more than 20, 24 points on most teams. But they had a lot of opportunities because their quarterback and running back ran up the middle. North Dakota State's defense, right now, the defensive line, at least in the run game and the linebackers, it's Swiss cheese, man. And it's going to be interesting to see that defense go up against Valley teams. There's a lot of talent lost there from the portal. It's a lot of youth. The offense and Cam Miller of NDSU are going to have to score. So I'm going to give credit to Towson here. More impressive in defeat. I will give credit to a team who comes back, doesn't give up, and tries, even in the fourth quarter when you're down 31-10, tries to win it. And very impressive by Towson to almost do so, adjust their game plan a little bit. And that would be my answer to your question, Liam. On Montana and North Dakota State, I'm very impressed with how Montana ended that game. I'm very shocked how poorly North Dakota State ended theirs. So I don't know how you guys want to take this. You guys can take the losing teams. You can take the winning teams. Jamie, one of the 4. Go with what you'd like.
I mean, I hate talking about losers. But, I mean, I'll counter your point on Towson. It's exactly what you said. They were down 31-10. Okay, they scored a couple of touchdowns, but they were really never going to win that game. North Dakota State, your defense hasn't been very good, and they kind of chipped back in, but your offense was doing enough that they weren't going to get there. As far as the Western Carolina-Montana game, I was really impressed early by Western Carolina, but then I was really impressed by Montana because I didn't think they had the juice to catch up. And at one point, I think they scored like 24 straight points to really flip that game on its head. And then they just kept them at arm's length. Cole Gonzalez had a nice game. That interception kills. Ayat, Montana is struggling to find a pass game right now. Ayat had 4 touchdowns on the ground. So, when they got down in that, that 10-yard line and in, that goal to go type mentality, he was able to punch the ball in 4 times, which is impressive. I think scroll down a little bit. I think Eli Gilman had 160 some yards. So he was solid. Was it 175? So he was really good. What you expect? I mean, he's the reigning Jerry Rice winner. So that's what they need to lean on. Those 2 names right there at the bottom, Gilman, Bergen. I don't know when Cole Grossman's going to be there. If he is there, that just adds another dimension. But yeah, as far as what I'm impressed by, I'm not really super impressed by Towson. I was initially impressed by West Carolina, but I'm more impressed by Montana's fight back because I didn't know that they had that in them. I didn't know if they had that in them. They showed me that they do. So that's impressive. I think the Grizz are kind of following the same almost blueprint as last year as far as how the season went. They just don't have that stupid loss in the middle yet. But I think they play Northern Arizona this week, so we'll see.
Ooh, maybe a little preemptive strike there while wearing
I think
the
they play
hat.
Eastern, but
Yeah, we'll see. Kyler, are you impressed by any of this? Anybody?
no, and I'm glad you asked. No, actually, it wasn't impressive. Like kind of Jamie said, right? Sure, Western Carolina, it was pretty impressive the first half, but then any type of ability to where I can look at it and go, oh man, they played a hell of a game. They just completely squandered because that was a horrible second half. The second half was least impressive than the first half being more impressive. So it's like, it is what it is that I wasn't, yeah, you got your shit kicked when it mattered. And it wasn't even competitive the last half of the game. So that's where it's like, yeah, screw you. And then this Towson NDSU game, no, like Jamie said, this was one of those things where it was impressive for 5 minutes when they started battling back and got within 7 points. So they had one heck of a, quarter and a half, but that was about it. They at least showed that they were willing to fight, but then they still gave up 2 scoring drives at the end to really, solidify that the game was really like it was for the other 3 quarters, not that close. I think both teams probably did what they were supposed to do in terms of the scoreboard at the end of it. So when we're looking at the score, probably Montana was supposed to win by, double digits. North Dakota State was probably supposed to win by about 20 if you, follow the FCS, and that's pretty much what happened. So, yeah, I'm going to go with neither. It just, they each had little points where you're like, I like to see that fight, or, oh, these teams, they have a little bit of dog in them. But in the grand scheme of things, that's overshadowed by the neglect of what happened either in the beginning of the game for Towson or what happened at the end of the game for Western Carolina, to where it just really pissed me off.
I think these questions I love your points, Kyler, and I think these questions are occurring because there is no perfection out there. And I had the greatest prediction of all time last year by picking South Dakota State to go undefeated. I called that.
You nailed
I
it.
called it early and often. I was one of the only ones.
That's very unbiased of you.
Very unbiased.
Very unbiased. But last year, seriously, I said every podcast, I'm like, this whole thing's a waste of our time. Just crown them and let's move on. And everybody right now is nitpicking themselves because they don't feel comfortable. And they're nitpicking others to make themselves feel better about their own problems, which is honestly a ton of fun and leads us into just great questions. These are great. Jordan Thule comes back to us again. Thanks for being a gold member, Jordan. Really appreciate having you on that private page. Who is the most championship-ready team today from top to bottom if playoffs started next week? And JMC from our big page says, which team hasn't shown vulnerability this season? Boy, what a question. I'm going to start with Kyler, but I'll just say, if I had to give one to the JMC part about, hasn't shown any vulnerability, I think it's just Montana State. But Kyler, lead us off into this one. This should be a fun one.
Yeah, I mean, really, that is the only team that hasn't shown any sort of vulnerability. But even they did in the first part of that New Mexico State game. I mean, it was an FBS game. They were favored. New Mexico State sucks. So we can't just give them slack because it was an FBS game, or we can't judge them based off that. That was an FCS team disguised as an FBS opponent. So even Montana State has shown a very small vulnerability. But after that game, they haven't played anyone, right? So, yeah, they've done what they're supposed to do, and they're dominating. But I want to see them play against an actual good FCS opponent, because even New Mexico State's not a good FCS opponent. They'd be a middle-tier Missouri Valley team, middle-tier Big Sky. So I want to see what they can do versus an actual decent team. And we'll see if they still look as good as they have. Other than that, every single team looks like there's something wrong with them, right? South Dakota State can't throw a ball to save their life. I mean, they look awful.
Does Idaho look like they have something wrong with them?
Idaho's quarterback situation is even worse than South Dakota's. Idaho's quarterback play is atrocious. I mean, it's awful. So if you can play 5 back and let them try and do something, Idaho's not going to be able to score on some of these elite defenses like a South Dakota State. South Dakota State can shut them down defensively, but then Idaho's defense looks strong. But yeah, every single team has some type of flaw, and that's where it's kind of exciting but I don't think we're going to see these flaws the rest of the season. It's still early. Only 33% of the season's done, like I said, question 1. So you're going to see a lot of these teams start to clean it up, and then there's not going to be as many flaws. And then probably when it gets close to selection time, we're looking at it going, there's probably only 3 teams who can actually win a national title, or maybe only 2 teams who can win it. It's exciting right now because we're pinpointing everyone's flaw and no one looks perfect. Like last year, South Dakota State looked perfect. They looked like no matter what, no one's touching them. Everyone else looked like they had some type of flaw. Maybe even North Dakota State looks the most flawless, but even like you mentioned, their run defense has been horrible the last 2 games. It was fantastic the first 2 games. It was pretty damn fantastic the first 2. Then these last 2, it's looked like there's an issue with it. So every single team has a flaw. Besides, Central Arkansas actually maybe looked one of the more balanced.
Don't come out of here stealing my answer.
I mean, hey, wear the shirt if you want the answer.
He loves those Bears.
But I'm still waiting to see Central Arkansas play more quality opponents too. So as of right now, yeah, UC Davis looks okay, but they have flaws. Every team in here has a flaw. It's wild. Besides Montana State, Montana State looks the most flawless, but I don't trust their quarterback play when it comes to a great defense. If they can somehow stop the run or slow down the run, are you going to just hope that the quarterback play, Tommy Mellott, who does look really good right now, he's throwing the ball well against mediocre teams, but if the run is not there, are you going to trust him to just sling it down the field? I wouldn't personally. So it's one of those things where if the season ended today, we have 15 real teams who can win a national title. Unfortunately, I just don't think this is going to last. I think people are going to clean up their flaws. And, yeah, give it 2 weeks before the playoffs, there's 2 teams who look like they're only going to be able to beat in Frisco.
Well, home field advantage is going to be huge. And keep it held in here, Kyler, Jamie, and you keep it held in too, because we're going to go down the line at the end of this question. You're going to have to answer it. We're going to have to say which team you think right now would be most championship ready. But, Jamie, a chance to speak on these many contenders.
I mean, I'm gonna go Central Arkansas. They've got it all put together right now. They only have 1 turnover on the season, by the way. McElvaine's thrown 1 interception, no fumbles. So they're taking care of the ball. They're moving the ball almost at will because Shunderic Powell is unstoppable. The defense they've already got like 28 tackles for loss and 18 sacks or something like that. It's ridiculous. 4 games in. So I agree with Kyler. Neither them nor Montana State has really played anybody great, but who is great? And it's hard. And I know if you look down their schedule, especially Montana State, they have, Mercyhurst, Utah Tech, and whoever the hell else they drubbed from Maine. Yeah, exactly. They suck too. They don't even stink. They suck.
They're bad.
They're pretty bad. So, yeah, there's still going to be games that we'll learn a lot, but today, I'd put some money on Central Arkansas. I certainly would.
Oh, man, it is tough to say right now. I think it's hard to ignore the champs, even with the chinks in the armor. Like, I just think it's hard to ignore them. Now, South Dakota State is 67th in passing offense, and if you follow a lot of their fans on Twitter, it seems to be some of the bigger complaints, while also wanting them to run the ball more. So it's a little confusing. Run the dang ball. God, our passing offense stinks. 67th in the nation right now, and it's only 4 weeks. Montana State is tied at 68th. And those are probably 2 teams that you might want to consider here. But I don't think we just discard Mark Gronowski as he gains more confidence with his receivers, very young tight ends. The offensive line does not look the same, but that secondary for South Dakota State is senior, veteran, and really, really good. So your odds of passing on them and are very, very slim. And the front 7, I would say, is a lot stronger than like a North Dakota State's and some of these others. They face a brutal schedule, but I think it's hard just to discount South Dakota State right now. I think we're looking for a reason. I think we're all begging for it a little bit. I personally would never cheer for, and I hate teams that just win all the time. So, I think fans are looking for that. But I do think they look pretty darn good. And we act like them beating SLU is nothing, blanking them with 0 points. A D2 win that they had was awful in terms of the overall 24-3, but they still held them to 3 points. Oklahoma State's an outlier. They're so good. And, Incarnate Word's offense is never something to bat an eye at. So they still won that game by 20-plus points. I think it's easy to forget about them as successful as they are. So that kind of gives my answer away. Top to bottom, because Mark Gronowski's there instead of like a Tommy Manlott, and because of the experience factor and the coaching, I'm going to take South Dakota State still as the most championship-ready team. Jamie, who do you got?
Yeah, I'm sticking with Central Arkansas.
Kyler?
Yeah, I mean, I'm split because if you had me put money down, I would bet probably Matt's way. But if we're just asking who looks the most complete if the season was ending today, my answer would probably be Montana State. Looks the most championship ready today. I just think by the end of the year, South Dakota State's offense is going to click a little bit better because their defense is elite right now. Their defense is elite. And, it looks pretty damn good on that defensive side where I don't think most teams are going to be able to do much against that defense. So that's where my actual bet would change. And I think South Dakota State's probably all still going to win it or be the favorite. But right now, I would at least put a little bit of money on Montana State going. Right now, they look the most ready.
Awesome. And it's great questions. It's going to be a lot of fun as we get here into conference play, guys. Mr. Matt Bernhard comes back in here from the big page. Great question here. And maybe we've already answered it. Final 2 questions of our top 6 topics. What did we learn, if anything, from the non-conference slate? What were the lessons that we should take away, Jamie Williams, from 4 games in out of conference?
I think it's kind of the theme of what we've been talking about today. It's wide open this year. Now, you're still going to wind up probably with the same 4 or 5 teams that you see year after year, but there's more of a chance for one of these other teams to jump up and make some noise. And that's exciting. We haven't had that in a long time. Last year, it's South Dakota State. Let's see who's going to be sent to Frisco to get popped by them. Before that, South Dakota State, North Dakota State, North Dakota State, North Dakota State, North Dakota State. We had a couple teams in there that gave North Dakota State some problems. We only beat them once, though. So, I mean, and still, it might wind up still being a Dakota market rematch in Frisco, and I wouldn't be surprised at all. But I also wouldn't be surprised if neither one of them's there at this point. But yeah, it's exciting. It's good. It's good for the FCS to bring other teams into the mix. I think there's teams all across the country that are at least going to energize their fan base to be excited when the playoffs get here.
Cool. I'm going to take this in a way different direction, Matt. You ready? What we learned from the non-conference slate this year, it kind of hit me 2 weeks ago, and I started putting it out on Twitter, is for years, people have said, don't vote, don't make polls, don't rank for 5-6 weeks, October, November. Your preseason poll is worthless. I think what we learned from this season and the beginning of this year is with 16 seeds. I tweeted this out randomly, and I was like, oh, shoot, I never thought about this. The committee, whether you like it or not, is going to take ranked wins at the time they play. 8 seeds and 16 seeds, resumes will never be more important ever. So I think what we learned from this non-conference slate is within the first 2 weeks, voters have to be paying attention, putting people in the right positions, going off of resume and more than a prediction down the line, because the ranked win that someone may have over an ACU or Western Carolina in week 1 or 2 is going to have huge impacts, even if Western Carolina is dog crap 6-7 weeks down the line. So I think with a longer beginning non-conference slate, I think what I learned is with 16 seeds, the narrative that we shouldn't have preseason polls week 1, week 2s should absolutely die, because until they stop taking ranked wins at the time, and that's a separate issue, it's whataboutism to talk about that, it is essential that we have good rankings and polls, because these non-conference slates will be key if you are the 8 seed or 11 seed or 5 seed or 7, and that is massive.
I'll completely agree with you, Matt, because let me ask you both this. Do we expect either either Albany or Abilene Christian to be ranked at the end of the year. I personally don't. Do either one of you think they will be?
No.
Guess what? Idaho has 2 ranked wins against with both of those, and they count for their resume.
Boom.
And that's how the committee views it. Idaho has an FBS win and 2 ranked FCS wins. Where does that put them resume-wise right now versus the entire FCS?
Oh, absolutely, number 1.
Exactly. So they've benefited. They've benefited from, us as voters not knowing that Albany was going to stink. I mean, but how will we know that? Well, we should have known a little bit, and I didn't give them that top 10 look at the beginning of the year, but I thought, they still had a good enough run game that Gattuso would have a good enough defense, but they just haven't had it. They're out of my poll, but they were still in there, I believe, when Idaho beat them towards the back end, but they were still there. Abilene Christian does not enter my poll, and they will not be entering my poll this week. I even with the close loss, they'll probably still just drop a couple points on others. I'm not going to reward them for losing close to Idaho there because and you can't just say, oh, look what they did against Texas Tech too, because how many times have we talked on this show about FBS teams losing FCS teams, and then that FCS team's not very good the rest of the year? I can point one out from 2010.
Well, there's no perfect system either. So
Right.
we wait 5 weeks in, and then we go, oh my gosh, SEMO was really good. And now since we're 5 weeks in, they're number 9. So the team that beat them in week 2 gets a number 9 ranked win. Is that what we're going to do? There's no perfect system. But the reality is this, because we'll get off track here. I learned that I think rankings and polls are so important because of the 16 seeds.
And the reason you have to have the ranked at the time is because think about somebody, let's just use Southern Illinois. Before this week, I feel like I appropriately ranked them where I did, at 6 or 7, wherever the heck I had them. But Southern Illinois is a completely different team with and without DJ Williams. So if he's gone the rest of the year and Southern Illinois doesn't play well and they fall out of the rankings, should SEMO get punished because they should have been ranked at this time? So, or do you go at the end of the season and say, okay, here's what the top 25 is, who have beaten them, and how is that how? So you said it's imperfect. I feel like you should kind of look at it both ways. Look at it then versus now, and Sam Herder does a great job of that when he breaks down the playoff picture as you get into like week 8, 9, 10, 11. So be looking for Sam's articles on that. I'm sure he's going to do it again this year.
Absolutely. And if you don't like how it works, scream at the committee, but right now it is. So, Kyler, I ran over your time and your thunder. Is there something you learned?
Yeah, we learned a few things. For one, Jamie just said it. Every single voter needs to start taking my approach and not ranking any CAA team until they get off Flow Sports. So, I mean, let's be real with ourselves. The CAA sucks. They got no good teams, so stop ranking them. Here's the reality of what we've actually learned, trolling aside. The Missouri Valley is pretty damn good. They do by far look like the best conference, and I don't think second place is that close to the Missouri Valley this specific year. We also learned there's a few teams who look really good, but I think most of the FCS looks pretty damn shitty right now. And yeah, that's kind of what it is. There's some talent that's exciting, but I think right now the bottom of the FCS is much larger than the top of the FCS. That's for damn sure.
It will be interesting to see what happens through that Valley slate when you get. I mean, I tweeted out North Dakota State's first 4 conference opponents. Right now, number 17 Illinois State, UND number 9. South Dakota State number 1, and I'm missing one in there. Southern Illinois. So yeah, you're going to learn a lot about these teams as they collide in conference play, which is what we're looking forward to. Jamie, the final one on the top 6 here really is kind of yours, and Kyler, feel free to throw input in here, but you are a legit voter, and the Rev wants to know our current Payton Award favorites. So Walter Payton Award, best offensive player in the country in the FCS. Who do you got right now?
For me, we vote for 5 at the end of the year. But right now, to me, there's 3 names that are jumping off the page to me. Number 1, Shaderick Powell. The guy's out on pace to run for like 1,850 yards. If he increases his average by 10 to 12 yards per game, he's a 2,000-yard runner before we vote. So we'll see how that winds out. But he's number one for me right now. Number two, I continue to be impressed by Cam Miller. Cam Miller has played so good this year. Without Cam Miller's smarts and skill in that comeback against Tennessee State, there is no comeback. Yesterday, I looked at.
Can I also say that he was down his top 2 receivers against East Tennessee State, 2 senior receivers, and 3 top receivers in the game against Towson out.
Yeah, and I think at one point he was 16 out of 17 to start that game yesterday. So he's right there. He is right there. If Powell falls off at all, Cam Miller's right there. And the third guy I've got my eye on is Paxton DeLaurent of Southeast Missouri State. He's been really, really good. I had a decent game again yesterday. Had a 6 touchdown game a couple games ago before their off week. So those are the 3 I've got in mind right now. I'm sure other names will pop as we go through the year, but right now that's your podium, and we'll see which other 2 slide in there to make up my ballot.
Very cool, Kyler. Any disagreements for our official voter there? You feel good with those picks?
No, that's 1A, 1B, right? I think those are right now the 2 front runners. And God, I'm hoping it's not a quarterback, right? Because it is fun when we finally see someone else. A running back would be fantastic to win it. When was the last time a running back won? I mean, it's been
a long time.
Early 2000s.
Was it Brian Westbrook?
2003.
Yeah, it probably was.
I think it's Brian Westbrook. Yep.
Yeah, so that would be awesome if we saw a running back. There's a couple wide receivers who are doing a pretty damn good job. What was it, like Dorian Anderson? He's doing pretty well. I mean, Efton Chisholm, too bad the team sucks, but he's putting some pretty baller numbers where you might have 120 catches and 1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns by the end of the season. So that'd be pretty sweet. But I think Powell and Cam Miller are by far the 2 best options if we had to end the season right now. I mean, they look fantastic, and I would be happy for either one of them. I like watching Cam's game evolve. He looks very similar to Easton Stick right now in every portion of the game. I mean, got to give him a lot of credit, especially for how many people in North Dakota hated him for no reason when he won a couple national titles and still.
Don't put me in there. I've got the receipts from that spring season.
He looks pretty damn good right now, and he looks like the best quarterback by far.
Well, people will think back and say, "Oh, look, he went 1 for 12 for 5 yards." Remember that? And he did, and it was bad. But you got to give credit where credit's due when somebody works hard on their craft, and this is the result of it. And Bison fans should be excited.
Yeah, he's fun to watch. And just for a little history lesson, all quarterbacks until 2015, Kyler's Cooper Kupp at receiver. We then don't get a non-quarterback until 2003, Jamal Branch from Colgate, a running back, actually.
Nice.
And then you hit Brian Westbrook in 2001. And then that's when quarterbacks didn't do nothing, because then it's all like running backs and receivers all the way back to Dave Dickerson in Montana in 1995. So quite the history lesson there for the Walter Payton Award. Fun to go through. Fun slate of non-conference play for sure. And that'll always make you a little bit hungry for the real conference fun.
Taco King, coming to you from bright and sunny Fargo, North Dakota. It's time for a Taco Bet, and time for you losers to pay up.
Gentlemen, this is a fun one. My coworker, Brad Berthold, big Bison fan, he actually asked me this on Saturday evening. He said, listen, NDSU's defense is, he's very homer biased Bison, and he will own that. Brad doesn't take that as an insult. He's like, the defense is not good. It's not playing well. So he wants to know, this one's pretty unique because you kind of have to be predictive. He says, every time NDSU scores less than 24 points, how many of those games equate to a loss for the rest of the regular season? So how many games would NDSU score less than 24 that they would lose for the rest of the year? So this one is interesting. If they were, you have to kind of combine 2 things. How much do I think they're going to lose? And will it be less than 24 points? So, Kyler, if the NDSU is unable to score 24 points, how many of those games will they lose?
I don't think there's one game NDSU scores under 24 points.
Oh, really? Okay. So
I think there's only one game one team that could probably hold them to 24 points and less, and that's, maybe South Dakota State. But even Incarnate Word scored 24 against them, and Southern Illinois held Incarnate Word to 28. Northern Colorado held Incarnate Word to 28. So it's not like SDSU did this phenomenal thing holding them to 24. So I think NDSU's offense is a little more efficient. So I don't think NDSU scores under 24 points all season. So
Interesting.
I guess by that question, 0. But I do think NDSU probably drops one game this year. I don't know who, if it's South Dakota State or vice versa. But I don't think it's going to be a 24-point
Very
issue.
cool. Jamie, what do you think? Your Dukes know how to score points. So what about
just
this
not when
one
they
here?
play an FCS team?
Yeah,
Apparently
not
not.
an FCS team. What do you think for North Dakota State here?
Just for fun, I'll say 1. There'll be a game that they score less than 24 and they lose, but it'll probably be like 23. And they'll lose like 27-23 to somebody. Maybe it's the Jackrabbits. Maybe it's this week against Illinois State. Except for Illinois State's pretty beat up as far as injuries. So maybe not them. But hey, let's go with 1 just for fun because I don't want to say the same thing as Kyler because Kyler sucks.
Finally,
Were you going to say they score more than 24 in every game?
Of course I was.
My man, we don't miss.
Yeah, but you technically went different here. So I get to agree with Jamie on this one. I can see North Dakota State actually losing 2 games because they got a brutal schedule, but only one of them where they score less than 24. So I'll say 1 as well with Jamie, but I can see them having 2 more losses moving forward, dropping 3 games here on the 12-game season. It would not shock me at all because the front 7 and some of those coaching schemes are not looking great for them. So you got some issues. That being said, it's coming here quickly. Let's see what happens.
Just because your question is answered quickly doesn't mean we don't care. It's time for this week's Quick Hit Questions.
Thank you, random AI voice from the internet. Don't want to sound like a bunch of wet noodles around here. All right, boys, quick hit question time. And Scott Bulwit starts us out here. I like this one. He says, are the 32-point and 48-point spreads for Montana State the past 2 weeks just a little bit excessive? Is that too much, Kyler?
No, look who they played. Montana State can run the damn ball, and they're a really good team, and they're not playing anyone good. So I think the spreads are pretty dang accurate.
Yeah, it's pretty. If honestly, we've seen FBS versus FCS spreads that are that big. So hey, it is what it is. Vegas doesn't lose money; they know what they're doing. So. Dustin Perman says, please evaluate SDSU versus SLA. Did we learn anything other than the Jacks need to complete more passes? I think what we learned is that Jack fans are coming off of elite top-level championship teams. So you need to manage your expectations a little bit. You gave up 0 points on the road. You scored 40.
41-0.
You had one running back. I believe he had 5 carries and he had 3 or 4 touchdown runs.
Murder.
Like it was like 5 carries for 200 yards or something. I think Jack fans need to look inward a little bit and accept that you are not as good as you were last year, but don't hate on your team and tear them apart and be upset just to storm the field in Frisco when you only lost to Oklahoma State. Like, it's entirely possible. And then what did you do? You wasted the whole season being mad, because I've been there as a Bison fan, for one moment of joy looking back, oh, what a great year. Was it? Because you kind of sounded upset on Twitter the whole time. I think South Dakota State, to answer your question, Dustin, is just fine and will definitely be semifinals at the worst come this season.
The worst.
Joshua Hoffman, South Dakota State fan. Give me the easiest and hardest conference schedules for some top 25 teams. Jamie, who's really up against it? Now we enter conference play.
Probably somebody in the Valley or somebody in the Big Sky. Honestly, I haven't looked at any of the schedules
I'll
to see who it is. I mean,
I'll help you out, but it's South Dakota State. I'll go right back to them. And North Dakota State will play the same teams, but the Valley scheduling is junk. And now South Dakota State will travel to UND. They will travel to North Dakota State. They will go to South Dakota. So that's like a brutal schedule. And I think Idaho's another one that I'd like to bring up, unless I'm mistaken. Idaho's got a great start here, but they're going to travel to UC Davis, right? They're going to have to play at Montana State. Weber's coming to them. Idaho State is a rivalry game at the end, so I think that's a tough slate for them. And Montana State, equally as well, has some tough competition despite hosting the Grizz there at the end. So
yeah, the easiest one is Villanova because they don't play any damn body in the CAA, and it looks like they need it.
My man.
Kyler's like, get that CAA. Rylan Millett says, which team is the biggest surprise and which team is the biggest disappointment so far this season? Biggest surprise, Kyler. We've talked disappointment kind of the last few podcasts. We kind of have crapped on those teams. Who's your biggest surprise, though?
This one's going to sound a little bit, no, actually, yeah, probably North Dakota. And that's because, outside of this week where they looked a little rough against Pioneer League team, they've looked pretty damn good. I mean, because Idaho State's been a frisky little offense. They murdered them. And we just saw what Idaho State did to, Jamie's team, Southern Utah. Then going to I guess it was in North Dakota, but, beating Montana. Yeah, I thought North Dakota would have a little more of drop off, but they seem to just be that really tough team who every single year is going to be probably between 8 and 12. I mean, it seems like that's probably where this team's going to be. Other than that, I don't think there's like any real surprising teams this year. I don't know.
It's surprising that there's so many teams that we think actually have a shot, honestly.
Yeah, today, not tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Asa Lulin wants to know thoughts on NDSU's running back Marty Brown's performance yesterday. Marty freaking Brown. Talked about him for the spring season and everything else. The one thing I knew Tim Polsak would bring back to North Dakota State is thunder and lightning, the concept of two running backs hitting you in the mouth over and over again. He felt it out the first couple games, and he said in his post-game press conference after the ETSU close win, I'm putting in guys who've broken the tackles. And against Towson, Marty Brown, 24 carries, 126 yards, 3 touchdowns, and his lightning, Barika Penu, 13 carries, 54 yards. Everybody else, if you take out the quarterbacks, total carries, 2. So NDSU has found their 2 guys that they are going to hit back and forth. I hate to say like South Dakota State wisely has done the last few years, but Marty Brown looks really good. He'll be the guy for NDSU this year. Who had the most impressive win out of all the Dakota schools, said Peter Bogarty. What do you think there, Jamie? Dakota schools?
I mean, when you go shut somebody out, I mean, that's pretty impressive. I'll go South Dakota State. I know Southeast Louisiana is not the Southeast Louisiana of 3 or 4 years ago, but you still went on the road and you pitched a shutout. And you didn't have to worry about what your quarterback did because Kirby Voorhees, all of a sudden, your 18th string running back had 3 touchdowns and 1,000 yards. So, yeah, I'm going to go with South Dakota State.
Awesome. Well, South Dakota State, that guy seems to be a famous statement made famous by one Kyler Neal. But this isn't about South Dakota State because
that statement was pretty damn accurate. Just saying.
The Rev says, is Shanderick Powell that guy? Kyler, what do you think?
Yeah, as of right now, he looks by far the best running back in all of the FCS. Hopefully he can continue to build his resume and get a good draft. I mean, that would be ideal. So absolutely, he's that guy, man. He looks good. Hopefully he stays healthy.
He does look really good. Shocking things that happened this weekend. Who was the most shocking upset win of the week, says Jordan Thule. Is it Lafayette? Is that what we're going to talk about, Jamie? Who is it? Who's the most
Who
shocking?
cares about Lafayette? They're a Patriot League team. I even without DJ Williams, SEMO was pretty impressive. I'm going to just shout out a CAA team who's been pretty bad for a long time. Stony Brook picked up a win, and they're 3-1. So Stony Brook, fastening back to the late Chuck Priori days when they had a decent team for a year or two. They look pretty good. They're 3-1. I'll give them a little run for today.
But I thought Campbell was the best.
I never ranked their ass.
You rank the recruiting classes. That's what we rank.
Yeah.
Alrighty. If you guys love the background music, you got that little mega live in the back for quick hits. You always know we're going, if you listen to the pod this year, you always know we're going into maybe some non-peer football questions, which our fans ask once I switch it to the daydreaming background music. The Rev says, why are tamales the best food ever? And I genuinely mean this. I think he's talking about the hot tamales, like the little red things. If that's not correct, I have no idea what he's talking about. And I wish I was doing this for entertainment value. Based off your laughter, I feel like there's something else.
No.
This isn't a bit.
This is not
This is a bit.
I saw this question. I was like, it's got to be the hot tamales on the cookies. Because I have no clue what else he's talking about.
Matt, what do you think, Jamie? We cannot give him this. And we got to just I don't care if this becomes a 20-minute segment. Matt, what do you think? Not a hot tamale. What do you think a tamale is?
I would if I had a guess.
Where do you think it's the origin?
I would say I would have to go to a Mexican restaurant to get a tamale. It has to be something like that because my wife makes fun of me because I don't. My favorite Mexican restaurant is Taco Bell and Taco John's, and she's like, "That's not real." So I'm gonna guess it's that. It just sounds that vibe, but I don't know what it is.
Have you seen those things that are cooked in like corn husk?
No, sweet corn. I peel it and I eat the corn.
I had that for dinner tonight, but I didn't have a tamale. I don't know that tamales are the best food ever, but
No,
I can also say I haven't had an authentic tamale like in Texas or anything. So, I'd like to try one, but
I thought about not saying this tonight, by the
not
way.
something I go to. So, I'll go to lots of things before I go to that. I like the ones I've had, but they're not the best food ever.
No, they're decent, right? I don't think they're bad, but I also have a bad taste in my mouth because in the past, the first time I ever had a tamale, I didn't know you weren't supposed to eat the corn husk.
I was gonna say you ate the corn husk, didn't you?
Yeah, so for like 10 years, I went, screw you guys. That's a horrible food. Why does anyone eat it? Then, you get older and people make fun of you, like my wife, who goes, that's how you eat a tamale? And that's what I thought. Why would you put it on my plate if it's not edible? I did not know. But it's good food, but it's not even close to being the best kind of food. I mean, even if you go to Mexico, it's not the best food. So, no, Rev, that's a bad take.
I'm glad I learned a lot. I'll Google it after the show. I thought about doing it before, but I was like, I'm going to take a guess live.
Just Google tamales near me and see where you can go. It's probably going to be like 5,000 miles away from you.
No, do you have a taco truck somewhere?
Maybe in the summer for a little bit. It's getting cold up here.
They got them up there.
They got to be there somewhere. But speaking of food, though, Brandon Anderson says, what tailgating food/drink is overrated? This is a great question. Around the horn with this one. Kyler, what is the overrated food or drink?
The food is anything with a fork. You're at a tailgate. Beans, potato salad, anything you have to have a plate and a fork, screw you. I want just something in my hand. Hot dog, burger, make it easy. If you're doing brisket sweet, put that on a bun, we'll call it good. You just have a hand. So anything with a fork, get out of there. You're trying too hard. It's a tailgate. This isn't a restaurant. Get out of here. As for a drink, Fireball. Just stop it. Stop it. Everyone has Fireball. They walk around. You want a shot? And of course, I have to say, yeah, but I hate my life every single time I drink a Fireball. We're not 12 anymore. Stop doing it.
Fireball or Malort?
Yeah. Mix them both together. It'd be the same thing.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, Fireball. Yeah. Now people are going to, this is the problem. Now when we go to Frisco.
That's like, a hot tamale.
They're going to throw hot tamales and Fireball at us. Yeah, that's seriously. I've said that for years. I've said, I like Fireball because it tastes like the hot tamales, and the cookies. Which
Dustin's favorite food.
Hot tamales. He likes spicy things. Jamie, overrated, like UNC, tailgating food or drink?
I think the most overrated drink is water. Who the hell wants to drink water at a tailgate?
Nice. Yeah. I like that.
Perfect. Tailgating. Yeah, you got to
I don't. If you put food in front of me, I'm probably going to eat it. So it's not really that overrated. Yeah, I mean, with Kyler, I don't want to have to put a whole lot of effort into it.
Speaking of effort, people are get ready to unsubscribe. I've always said this, and I'm going to die on this hill, but you guys know who I am. You know who I am.
Ham and cheese sandwich.
I'm not working for my food when it's placed in front of me. A steak knife is about as far as I'm going to go. Ribs are way too much work. Yeah. Way too much work. You got to rip them. You got to get through the fat. Your hands are all soggy. People are like, come have all these ribs. I'm like, do I want to have 1,000 napkins and rip apart sauce? I think it's an overrated tailgate food. It's too much work for the moment. So I know there's big Ron Swansons out there that will hate me. Last one here, guys. Kyler Elliott says, if you couldn't be on a football podcast, what would your next choice be? Oh, so we're on a podcast. What do you think, Jamie? You couldn't do football, but you got this channel. You can do anything. What would it be?
For me, it would be either hockey or NASCAR. I mean, those are the things I know a lot about that I enjoy. So it'd be one of those two.
Very cool. I'd listen to you talk about hockey. Kyler, what do you think?
Ugly tattoos? Regrets?
I don't have many regrets in life. I just
Just
chalk
bad
them off
choices.
as I just chalk them off as mistakes, and we learn from our mistakes so we don't do it again. I don't know.
You could teach sales on a podcast.
No,
Guaranteed
I don't
to do
want
that.
to. That's my regular job. I don't want
You have to
do it.
actually like what you're going to talk about.
Yeah.
That's true. Well,
I don't know.
Well, if you
Maybe-
do think of something, mine's pretty easy. If I haven't mentioned it before, I love music is just such a passion of mine as a listener, but metal music specifically. I actually made a few episodes on YouTube just for fun. A lot of people now, they just react to music. A new band will drop a song and they'll just play it and they'll react and they'll literally give their thoughts on it. People make a ton of money off that. I would do that for metal music, but I don't have the time or effort to put it in because I love my bands and my CDs. So
Mine would be so boring. It'd be like something on animals fighting other animals. You know, like I always hate the take, and it's gone viral so much. Where it's who would win, a grizzly bear or a gorilla? And I'm like, you guys are idiots if you talk about a gorilla. It makes no sense. So yeah, it's just something stupid like that. Uneventful.
Well, I would listen to any stuff that you guys put out. I'd take 2 margaritas and enjoy it. So what is not uneventful is every time we're together for a podcast and the corny lines I think of to transition us from segment to segment. This one was good, guys. I really thought the questions were great. I appreciate everything the fans put out there. Just a reminder that if you're enjoying this on YouTube and you're sick of the advertisements, you can join FCS Gold for 99 cents a month. Right now, our Pick'em Challenge is about to hit week 4 or week 5, and appreciate Kyler Neal for running that. Our winner's going to get a $50 gift card Visa sent their way. You can join FCS Gold for just 1 month to be eligible for the Playoff Bracket Challenge. So if you want to do the Playoff Bracket Challenge, make sure you subscribe for FCS Gold sometime in the first 2-3 weeks of November before we get that Bracket Challenge going to win another $50. Plus, you get the ad-free stuff and everything else. Appreciate it if you listen on Apple and Spotify. 5-star reviews helped, and like and subscribe on YouTube. Shameless plug time is done. Jamie Williams, final thoughts with that beautiful Godspeed t-shirt and your big victory for the Dukes.
Well, yeah. I mean, I thought you were going to go to Kyler for final thoughts, so I was just like, staring here into the abyss. But let's go. Kyler's probably staring into the abyss too. So maybe it was better that I ramble on for a little bit about all this other crap that I don't know what I'm talking about. Other than go Dukes, we dropped a 70 burger on a Power 4 team. So now we're going to go play an FCS team this week. Oh wait, no, the MAC is not the FCS. But now from an FCS standpoint, just let's keep enjoying it. Watch it scramble up. Watch the teams. Somebody's going to screw up and lose some games, and Illinois State's probably going to win this week, so we'll see what happens.
What I love is
the wonderful word of advice. Just enjoy it, guys.
I've set him up
enjoy the games.
On our way out. I just realized I think I've set him up for failure. And like Jamie said, he's like, I thought you were going to Kyler. I think I've asked Jamie every week, and this is episode 7. Be like, send us out, Jamie. And he's like,
perfect.
What else do you want me to say at this
Keep
point?
doing it.
Just keep it going.
I can look. Kyler's in sales, but so am I. I can talk shit too. So here we go.
Mine would all just be too negative right now.
Yep.
Until we get a win on the books, Jamie's always going to be the last man talking, because mine's just going to be F you guys, and Matt's going to have to do extra editing.
Mark it down on the edits. Well, Jamie, appreciate the final words. We appreciate you guys listening to the FCS Fans Nation podcast. The best thing about college football, the best thing is the hate. And conference play starts now, so it's time to hate those rivals, embrace the games, cheer loud. Enjoy next week's game, guys, and we'll catch you next week on the FCS Fans Nation podcast. Boom. Thank you for listening to the FCS Fans Nation podcast. Make sure to leave a like, a comment, and subscribe on YouTube. To listen ad-free and enjoy many other perks, Join FCS Gold for only 99 cents a month by using the link in the description below. Make sure to follow FCS Fans Nation on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for listening to the premier podcast for FCS football.
Well, there is that. I mean, but they did beat a team that beat an FBS team, even though they lost to a D2000 team.